Welcome. Happy New Year. That sucked. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. All right, cool. So I love it. I always get from folks like, why are you doing goal setting class in January? And it's because 70 to 80% of the folks don't do their goals until January. You get there and you're like, oh my gosh, holidays were super busy. You've got so many moving parts. So I applaud you for being here, but there's a large part of your competitors that have a 3-month head start. And I'll explain what that means. What I find is when I do my goals in November, they don't really hit the ground running until February 1st. And Tina and I were speaking about this. So you think about it, you come up with them, you put them on paper in November. December, you change them up a little bit, you make some adjustments, you're really contemplating these. And then you make the adjustments, and then February, you really have everything dialed. You say, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is the direction I'm going. Unless something jumps out and says, this is a terrible idea and change course correction quickly, then this is what I'm doing. Fair assessment, it takes time. You don't just put it down and away you go. So we want to make sure, though, first things first, if you haven't put on paper and they're in your head and you have some goals, then it's not going to happen. It just isn't. There's no accountability piece there. We call those dreams. Dreams and aspirations are fantastic. But what's better than dreams or virtual reality is actual reality. Everyone agrees to that with all this computer stuff. We're talking about social media, and I love the virtual relationships. I like real relationships. So when they're in our head, they're virtual goals, and we need to make them to physical goals. So we're going to talk about how to do that. I do this every single year. I do this with my kids. I do it with my wife. I do it with all of my employees, and it's awesome, and it's really important. But you're going to have to dig deep. So the most important way to get to where you're going is to know where you've been. Agreed? And sometimes that can be a little bit painful. But if you tell yourself a story over and over and over again, and it's the wrong story, you're like, no, I swear, we call them excuses. So you can have reasons or results, so you can't have both. Agreed? But if I had it, when I have, let's say, my sales team, and I tell them and I give them some accountability, the people that send it to me and knock it out of the park and do it have no problem at all, and I don't get any reasons. 80% of the rest of the people, it's half done or not done, all I get are a bunch of reasons. And I already knew which ones were going to give me the reasons. So I want to make sure going forward, we're putting this on paper, we're going to make this happen, there's absolutely no reason. If a knucklehead like me can do and achieve anything I put my mind to, then there's absolutely no reason that any of you can't do the same thing. Agreed? All right, cool. So let's talk about, where are you now? Too many hours, not enough family time, need to exercise more, so much debt. So last year, I focused on the business. That's all I focused on. We got bought the year before, and to get the train on the tracks and make sure it's running and getting back to where it needs to be, it roughly takes a year to get back to the momentum, because it's a big train to get the momentum where you need to go. So I focused on the business. So what happened to everything else? Fell by the wayside. I was focusing on one thing. And there's a book, The One Thing. When you read it, it's fantastic, one of my favorite books, because it talks about when you focus on one thing. Now, the difference is you have to carve out throughout your day, and this is when we take this goal setting, and next month we're going to do time management. You have to block out to do all the things you want to, but only do those things. That means cell phones off, computers off, and we'll talk about that. But you have to know, it's I wasn't kidding when I knew I was 40 pounds overweight. So I paid in advance and hired a trainer 5 days a week, and I wake up at 5 a.m. and I go and see him. So for going no gym at all for 2 years to going 5 days a week, it's hard. It sucks. I want to throw up half the time. But I'm very intent with what I want to do. There's no excuses. I'm an early bird. So waking up at 4:45, I throw on some clothes, I get there. I don't like to let people down. That's why I paid in advance. I don't like to waste money. So I have a trainer. I don't like to waste money. He's sitting there waiting. I don't want to waste his time. He's pouring into me. And I'm going with my grain, which is waking up early, and then I'm done by 6, and then I can come back and get my kids breakfast and make lunch. No reasons at all. The difference before is I'd still wake up and do all the stuff with the kids, but I'd be in the office by 6:30. Now I said my day doesn't start till 9. So I just started there. My work day doesn't start till 9, and I check emails from 8:30 to 9. And before that, I'm going to do what matters. Before that, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to meditate. I literally meditate. Like if I didn't meditate in the mornings and I'm sitting in my car in front of my office, probably look really funny like I'm sleeping, and I'm playing my Calm app for 10 minutes. But it makes a big difference. It allows me to ground myself. All professional athletes, they meditate. Super successful people meditate. It's to stop the noise to focus on what's important. So I'm sharing those things with you because those are the things that I've made huge drastic changes because those are the things that need to change. I didn't cut out the business, but I made sure I focused. So when I tell you those stories, I want you to think, is it health? Maybe it is money. I will tell you, like last year was a fantastic year. Best year ever because I only focused on that. So then you're going to need to spend more time focusing on production or work. Doesn't matter what it is, but everyone's going to be a little bit different. Then we got to figure out where we're going. So first things first, this is going to be more of a workshop, not just me up here talking and preaching. So everyone have this little packet in front of them. So if you don't have your goals, the cool thing is when you leave here, you will have your goals. So the first page is, what is your biggest struggle in each area? And as you guys are writing, and I'm going to give you some minutes, I'm going to throw you out some of mine, some ideas. You're going to rate the struggle, like 10 is really bad. Like I am struggling so hard in my production. And 1 is not really a struggle at all. I'm doing really good. Or other way around, excuse me. 1 is like I'm struggling really bad. And 10 is I'm doing fantastic. All right, so for an example, for spirituality, 10, you're Jesus, 1, you're Satan. Fair enough? Cool. Love life, you can figure that out yourself from 1 to 10, all right? So 1 bad, 10 good. I want you to write down 2 specific areas. I want you to write down where you're struggling each. So work, not sticking to a schedule, not advancing, learning or growing, maybe not enough production. Money, I'm in debt. I need other sources of income. Love life, not enough intimacy, no partner at all. Family, not enough time spent together. Schedule's too busy. Spirituality, getting to church regularly. Meditation, right? Things like that. Friends, spending time with people like old friends. Like a thing, for me, I'm moving so fast. I've got kids, there's sports, there's business, there's new friends, but my old friends, except for my childhood best friend who helps me run my business, like I don't get to see them ever. So I had to make sure that I incorporated that into my routine. And routine's okay if it's meant for a positive reason. Self, working with weight gain. Maybe you're dealing with depression. I dealt with anxiety and depression for a long time growing up. And so those are things where hire a therapist. I don't have to take anxiety medication anymore. Like I'm being totally transparent because that's just the reality of it. These are all things that unless you put it on paper, then there's no way you're going to come up with solutions. So I'm a firm believer, you got to know where you were. You have to know what the problem is in order to come up with a solution. Where are you struggling? And then number them from 10 to 1. So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes and some quiet to do that. Page 2, for those of you that are really good in school. Me, I'm still writing down probably. So we call this the wheel of life. How many of you have done the wheel of life before? A few people. All right, cool. So this changes all the time. So you're going to take the wheel of life, you're going to start in the middle, and you're going to see these dots, and we're going to play connect the dots. We're going to bring out some childhood in us. So if it's 1 struggle area, so let's say I have a 3 in my love life, then 1, 2, 3. All right? If I'm a 10 in my love life, it's going to be count to 10, and you're going to put a little dot in each area, and I want you to connect the dots. I know it sounds silly, but it's very important for you to get the visual. A wheel this wheel is like amazing. It's big, it's round, the circumference is good. Some people have really small wheels. Some people have flat tires. Mine is a flat tire. So you can imagine, I was actually doing really well with spirituality. I was doing well with money. I was doing well with work, but myself, my friends, and my love life and family was all messed up. So you got one side of the tire, and then you have this other one that's got this little crease in it. It makes it very hard for it to go around. Now, it'll go really fast on the one side, really fast, and then you hit the ground, and things move very, very slowly. So really it all comes down to time management. When we teach that class, Accomplish It All with Time Management, this year we're teaching all new curriculum, all new classes except for a few. And the goal setting is one and the time management is the other, because if you don't have any goals and you don't know how to manage your time or can't manage your time, the other stuff is a moot point. It really is. It makes it it's not a moot point, but I'm just telling you, it's very, very hard to do. You have to remember, we all have bad habits that are instilled in us that we've been doing for a long time. So I'll give you an example. So smoking. I smoked from the time, my dad smoked for 80 years. He's 86. Nothing gets him. It's just the most odd thing ever. But I smoked on and off from the time I was a teenager till the time I was in my 30s. And probably smoked more when I was having wine or beer. It became a habit. So here's the thing that I learned. I didn't quit smoking. I had friends that smoked and smoked. Everyone smoked, tried the patch, tried all this stuff. So finally I went to a therapist because I was ready to smoke. It was very simple. I don't want to smoke because I don't want to die. My main goal in life is to walk my 2 daughters down the aisle at their wedding, which won't happen if I'm dead. So the smoking thing's got to go, even part-time. So I go and I see this hypnotherapist because one of my friends had done it years ago and it worked really, really well for them. And so I'm speaking to her and she's explaining to me that she's got a 99% success rate. I'm like thinking to myself, of course you do, right? Like she's probably hypnotizing me right now. But she explained to me the process and how the process works. Your subconscious is telling your heart to beat right now and your lungs to breathe. Anyone thinking about that? No. So your subconscious is there to literally save you. It's a protective mechanism. So when you first took a hit of a cigarette, what do? Yes. And that's your subconscious going, it's bad. This is bad. And then it tastes bad. And you're like, God, this is disgusting. It smells bad. Everything's like danger, danger, death. And what do? We go, no, this is good. This is good. This is good. This is a stress reliever. This is what other people are doing. So it fills my bucket. Whatever that is, right? As a teenager, we're doing it to be cool. Then you get addicted and then you find it as a relaxation. So your body will literally adjust and listen to you to turn it into a good. So that every time it goes, oh, you're stressed out. Cigarette, good. Let's relax. So you can train your brain to take something as negative as smoking and turn it into a positive. Then you can do that with anything. It's a mindset. So we have to learn how to just change some of these habits that we've created, that we've done over and over again, that we've trained our brain and our subconscious, unconscious thinking to think it's good, and we've got to switch them, but you have to be ready to do it. Is that fair enough? Like the big thing with hypnotism is you have to want to do it. People go, I don't want to balk like a chicken. You ain't balking like a chicken unless you're that guy that has a few beers at the party balking like a chicken, right? Like you naturally have to want to do that. I've referred her to 3 other people. All 3 people, longtime smokers, all quit. 100%. But all were ready to. So you have to anchor that to something. So if you're tired, there was a large part of my life, I'm living in hotels, I'm sleeping in my car. I was so over being broke, I'm done being broke, that was the turning moment. Till then, it was okay. Paycheck to paycheck was cool. I was still having a good time. Like the safety thing didn't matter. Even though I had a baby on the way, I was like, I've got this. No. So I really want you to focus on understanding that. Like the more you understand that, you're like, okay, I've got it. So no more mind tricks on yourself. You're all salespeople. You can sell yourself all day long. Some of the best salespeople in Orange County for real estate, don't think for a second, if you can sell someone $600 to $1,200 a square foot, that you can't sell yourself, that you're doing something bad is something good. Fair enough? Cool. All right, so this is what your wheel looks like. This is not a wheel. So our whole goal here is maybe it's like, I want my wheel to be bigger. So my good friend, he did his wheel and it was extremely small. It was very even, but it was very small. He's like, I want more out of life. Like, I feel like I'm doing everything really, really okay. And you guys saw those commercials, okay? Like the doctor is like, good news, I just got my license reinstated, right? That guy cracks me up every time. Or you're just putting it all in one area, whether it's focusing in family and love life and friends, and maybe your work's not where you want it to in production. So maybe you have to have a conversation. Honey, it's been a great couple of years. I know we've taken 3.5 months with the kids on vacation, but I really need to get back to selling real estate, right? Everyone's different. Cool. So what do some of our wheels look like? Flat? Small? All right. So we're going to change that. We're going to change that. Unless you're all 10s all the way around, then you can leave right now. It's okay. And then I'll have you teach this class because I've never been that one. So now you have to use intention. Where will you be? So we're going to take those same 7 areas. Now here's the trick to this exercise. It has to be extremely specific. It needs to be measurable. Measurable. Because if you have to hold yourself accountable to achieve goals. So in the core, we believe, like when we set your goals, we tie it to, what do we tie it to, Al? Consequence. Like, I love doing it like, well, hey, if I hit this goal, then I get to buy myself something like a new purse. That's great, but like if you can't buy yourself the new purse, it's not really a big deal because you don't have the purse. But if you don't hit your goals and what's your favorite purse? And you're like, oh, this beautiful Chanel bag. Great. If you don't hit your goals, you have to sell the purse. Guess who's going to hit their goals? And I've done this with multimillionaires. I've done this with, lower producers. It doesn't matter. It works. And what's funny is for like my coach or my student right now that makes the most for him is no hunting for 30 days. And it literally, like, I can't do that. And I said no guiding, meaning you can't guide other people to hunt. He's from Texas. It's his favorite family activity. It brings them close together. So now it's letting his family down, his kids down. I mean, we tied it all together. But he will hit his goal. So it doesn't have to be monetary, but it should be something of consequence that someone can hold you accountable to. So now I want you to put, so if it's work, I want to average 1 transaction per month this year. Or I want to save $20,000. Put a dollar amount on it. Really think about it. If it's, self, I want to lose 25 pounds. If it's spirituality, I want to meditate every single day. I'm going to give you guys a little cool thing that goes with this. The app is called Streaks. Streaks. It's $5. And so every day I put in the things that I want to do every day. And then you hit on it when you do it. And it holds you accountable to make sure that you do it and checks it off. And you put in which days that you do it. So my gym's in here for the 5 days I go. I have my daily devotional in here, 10 pages of book, meditation, etc. And it literally will count your run. So it'll show you you're doing this run for 30 days, 60 days, 160 days. Like, how committed are you? So it's a self-accountability tracker, and you can also show it to your spouse. Like, I know if I want to be held accountable, who do I tell? Yes, she loves holding me accountable. She's like, do I have permission? I'm like, yes, you do. She's like, yes. So it's a win-win for us. And if you're not married or don't have a spouse, just borrow one of your friends. I'm sure their spouse will be more than happy to hold you accountable. So I'm going to give you a few minutes. And 7, make sure it's measurable. So write that at the top, has to be measurable so that we can hold you accountable to the goal. And I'll give you guys a few minutes for that. I'll give you guys a few little ideas. I want to max out my 401k. I want a specific dollar amount of savings for my wife and I. Spend 1 date night each week with her. 1 date night. It's set and it's on there automatically. 2:30 on Friday, I'm off at work. Boom, we go out and have fun. If we were having really, really good fun, then we'll come home and be there Saturday morning. If we're having a little bit of fun, we'll be home, Friday night. Going to church every Sunday, meditating each day. Going to the gym 5 days a week. Reading 1 book each week. That was a big thing for me. I have a huge learning disability where I can't retain information in words. I have to read them over and over again. Like literally, it doesn't matter if I like it. I mean, I could have been a 15-year-old boy and it's Playboy and I would have had to read it 5 times. It stunk and it really hurt in school. But I've learned to kind of make my way through it. And so now I'm down to a book a week. They have audiobooks, so I can listen to a book a week. Last year, I did no self-enriching whatsoever. So what happened to myself? I didn't enrich. Like I didn't learn any new tricks. And there's so many great things and so many great books and so much information. So 10 pages a day, I'm looking at knocking it out a book a week. So I've picked all things that are so opposite of who I am, but all things that I've always wanted to do. They're all super hard. And they should be hard. Goals shouldn't be easy. That's just not what this is about. So really put some thought into that. I'll give you a few more. and we'll talk about the 5-year story next, which is probably the most powerful part to do in the exercise. But really knowing where you're accountable. But most importantly, the consequence. So I like collecting cars. It's my thing. I liked Hot Wheels when I was younger. I got older. I found you could get life-size ones. So I've stuck with that. So if I don't hit my goals, I have to sell one. That would make me very unhappy. Right? Like something that hurts. So think about it. Now, if I'm going to the gym 5 days a week and I'm doing this in 6 months, am I going to hit my goals? Yeah. Yeah. Right? I will. I will definitely hit my goals. I mean, if you're going 5 days a week and the guy's making me throw up almost every single time, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, this has to work. I can't believe people do this every day, right? But it's also changing my mindset. My head's never been so clear. My stress level's like way down. So picking things that are hard. The other thing that we do is we don't have fail words. So what are example of fail words? Can't is a good one. Think, try, maybe, hopefully. So I went out hunting at my buddy's ranch in Texas. First time, we went with 4 families, 5 families. There were 28 of us. And the other 4 or 5 families are all coaches as well, all throughout the country. And we're sitting with the spouses, and the kids are running around and playing, and I happen to be the only guy in the house. I was sitting with my daughter, and my daughter, we're talking about something, and she's like, I'm going to try, Dad. I'm like, that's a fail word, honey. Come on, we don't say fail words here. Immediately, all the spouses look at me, and they're like, dear God, you're my husband. You sound just like him. But what's funny is, I mean, these are some of the most amazing children. I love being around these folks because I'm looking at my friends' children that have these bars that they set, which is don't have fail words. Like if it reduces my chance of not succeeding by not setting myself up to think I'm going to fail, then that's easy for me. Like, okay, cool. So I avoid those things because we talked about the subconscious. We just did that whole thing. If you keep saying try, you're leaving yourself a way out. If you keep saying try, then your body, your mind's going to tell it, it's okay, you tried. Right? And I do that with my kids. You know, I really tried, honey. I'm like, well, next time, it'll be enough. Today it was not. It's okay. I love you anyways. That's all. But there's no 10th place. Like my oldest daughter, she's like 10th place. She's like, 10th place? This is ridiculous. There's no 10th place. I don't know. What even is this? She's like saying this. I'm not even saying this. I'm like, atta girl. Right? Because she thinks that way. She doesn't look down on anyone. She's talking about herself. She competes with herself. She wants to be her best self. So removing the fail words, right? So that we're not using those. Now, when I take these things, here's a 5-year story of my mentor, Rick. Rick's been a coach in the industry for by referral only, a big mortgage guy for a long, long time. He is a high school dropout, went to jail when he was 17, father died young. He's worth roughly $100 million. He's not necessarily the most pleasant. He wasn't the most religious, and he is very much more pleasant and very much more religious. Like if you hear who he was and see who he is, it's a great example. Those are the people that I like to follow. I'm not really good at following people that really don't look messed up because I am totally messed up and was messed up even more, and I can relate to that. So if you hear me talk, a lot of times you'll hear me share that. So this 5-year story, and we won't do this today, is a story that you're writing from the future to yourself. Hey, JJ, it's me. I'm 48 years old. I just wanted to let you know your daughter just graduated college. She's 21. She wanted to go to Vegas. I can't wait. Now, when you start talking in this way, immediately you're like, holy moly. Like, this is crazy. Daughter graduated college. Like, daughter's drinking legally, right? Like, these things start crossing your mind. Or you start, maybe you're 55, and now you're 60, and that's a trigger for you. Something triggers it. For me, putting the kids into the 5-year story triggers something that makes it measurable that 5 years goes by real fast. Now the other thing is on Facebook, they pop those like 7 years ago, check this out. And I watch my teenagers and then I see how little they were just 5, 6 years ago. And if you see how much development happens in a child, then don't think for a second, just because we're adults, that same amount of growth opportunity isn't there for us. It's 100% there for us. But we're in the hamster wheel not thinking about it. So, they're, just learning how to walk, not knowing how to ride a bike, to riding BMX races. So why isn't it that we just ignore that and we just go, okay, cool, I'm 25, my frontal lobe of my brain's working fantastic now. I've gotten that out of my system. I'm no longer going to be going to Kegers, and I'm going to work, and I'm good. And we do. We get stuck there. A lot of times we just go, okay, cool. And then we wonder why we plateau in certain areas of our lives. Because we have to think, well, okay, cool. If I could write my story 5 years from now, anything, what would it look like? What would it be? This is like, and I wasn't a big creative writing guy, but this was really fun. And when I wrote it, I even put in specific cars and things like that because I wanted to be specific. I put in specific dollar amounts that I never thought I could imagine in savings and things like that. And I told you, within 3 years, not even 5, all done. And then sometimes 2.5 years, done. So what does it make you want to do? You're writing another 5-year story. Now you're like, I'm really going to step it up this time. And then you'll be surprised. Now this sits right next to my desk. I look at my 5-year vision. It's ready to write a new one this year. And I accomplished almost all of it, and I'm waiting till June because I need to be losing some more weight. I was like, I didn't do that yet. So it's intentional. So I really want you guys to do that exercise. That's your homework. Write your 5-year story from your future self to yourself now and tell them what you've accomplished. Tell you what's happened. My dad has Alzheimer's. It was a little emotional yesterday. I went there and I realized for the first time, because he had some surgery, he's 86, that he's not coming back when I talked to him. There was as you get older and you have surgeries and things, coming back from that is very difficult. And I've been taking care of him for 10 years now, and each surgery is a little bit harder and harder. But last night was the first time I was I had a conversation with him, and he's like, I went to Tony's and JoJo came over and this and that. And, he's sitting in a wheelchair, and I just realized I wasn't going to be able to have that conversation with him. So 5-year story is the 5 years important. 5 years ago, I could have a full-blown conversation with my dad. Today, I can't. And there's friends that 5 years ago, we have loved ones, and they're not there. Making sure you're engaged and you're pointing in the direction that you want to go, whether it be family or whatever, is super, super important. Because there ain't no guarantee tomorrow. So you might as well, if you want to try and get it done in 5 years, you don't know you have 5 years anyways, you might as well try and do it. Accomplish the world. That's what we want to leave here doing. Cool? Any questions on the 5-year? Everyone going to do it? Please. That did not sound very convincing. Are we going to write the 5-year story?
Yes.
One more time.
Yes.
Thank you. I promise you it's the best thing. Sit down and write it with your wife. Go, honey, let's go 5 years. Oh, we were going to Greece. Oh, we're going to Spain. A friend of mine most recently, she is younger than me. Shayla's what, 38? 38 years old, 2 kids. She moved to Spain. She does what I do. She does it up in Reno. Big loan officer in Reno, runs a big region, does all of that. And she literally went to Spain. She works from 8 o'clock at night to 1 o'clock in the morning, Spain time. Other than that, she picks her kids up from international school. She goes surfing. They go to the mountains or they go to the beach. She's taking salsa classes and learning Spanish and just doing everything because that's where her mind was 5 years ago, and she made it happen. 5 years ago for me, I decided that I wanted to be a coach more full-time, and I wanted to do mortgage part-time. And I wanted to choose every person that I worked with going forward. So that luckily, I wrote that, 3 years ago, and then got offered an ownership position of the core training. And now I am going to be number 2 in the company to be able to help them lead it. Now, it wasn't other than the intention. Thank you. I'm super proud of that because it was nothing other than intention and drawing that attention to make it happen. That's all I did. And I was really and how am I going to do this? How can I run my business? Who do I have there? Do I have the right people in place? Right? All of these things run your mind. And then you put it on paper and you realize you're like, I've got this. This is pretty good. I can really do this, right? It's don't sell yourself so short, right? I think we do that way, way too much. So here's the other one, your 1-year business plan. Now this one cracks me up. So do you need more than a 1-page business plan? No, I'll answer that for you. You do not. I'm going to make this very easy. We're in sales. This is the business plan. You probably don't have a sophisticated one, and if you do, it's probably not completed all the way. If you really do, I'm proud of you. That's amazing. But we're going to look at a simple one. So everyone pull out the 1-year business plan, your current business. I want you to fill the numbers out that you know off the top of your head, and there'll be a point to doing this. Your current taxable income is, your current units are for the year. You have X amount of staff members. Your current business expenses are. Your sources of business are. Your current biggest weakness is. I want you to write down number 6 no matter what. Maybe it's door knocking. Maybe it's selling. Your net income per transaction. Your annual savings. Your current hours and your average sales price. Here's what I know. I know that most don't know these numbers off the top of their head. And that's okay because you don't have those habits. You should be looking at your P&L and your budgets every single month. Every single month. Comparing it line by line item. Going, did we overspend? Did we underspend? Are we getting an ROI? All of this is super important. You want to get a raise? Grab your P&L. I could probably give everyone in this room anywhere from a 10 to a 20% raise in your commissions with 0 increase in production if you gave me your P&L. And this is a learned skill. I'm not all that smart. I don't have a college degree. I have a PhD, public high school diploma. But I also have had this crammed down my head over and over again. So I have to take my mentor, Rick's, and one of his branches, he gives me his P&L, and I got to take my P&L, and I have to take each line and show where I'm better and where I'm worse, and by exactly to the penny how much. You do that over and over and over again, you start getting it. Like, he can do this with a fraction of the cost. Why can't I? But it's the easiest place to look for money is your own pocket. So making sure that you know your numbers is key. I can tell you on average almost all of these numbers. And it's because I look at it consistently. If you're 100% commission, then you are owning and running a business. If you work for a brokerage, you're hiring them to absorb the liability should you screw up, to help you with some marketing, maybe guide you in the right direction, and pick you up when you're down. Other than that, you own and run your own business. If you don't look at it that way, then you're also selling yourself short. Same reason I have a cross-country affiliation. They take care of all of that stuff for me, so I can focus on my business and count my pennies. So making sure that you guys are doing that. And company owners as well. Company owners probably is guilty of this. I didn't learn this habit until like 5 years ago to really learn this habit. And when I started finding pennies, it wasn't pennies. It was thousands of dollars. Thousands of dollars wasted not bringing in an ROI. So if you don't have this, this is all you need. Because on the next page is your 1-year business plan 2020 projected. I think a lot of times what we do is we complicate things. Do you guys agree? You complicate things, you make it too complicated. I'm a very simple person. It's just if you keep it simple, then it's going to be achievable. I always say if a man can do it, anybody can do it, right? So really, really, really simple. 1 + 1 = 2. So your taxable income will be, your current units will be for the year. How many staff members will you have? Your sources of business. That's a really great place to know. Where are your sources of business? Have you ever spent all year putting into, I don't know, Zillow and not getting an ROI that you wanted? And then you switch to a different zip code thinking you're going to get a different result? Or switch to a different one? I'm saying this because I know this happens in our industry because I see it all the time. Or you keep hitting the same market with mailers or keep knocking on the same doors and they have a really bad conversion in the area because you didn't go out and ask your title rep. So knowing where your business comes from and is important, knowing where it doesn't come from is also important. Your annual savings will be 20% of your taxable income. This is fact. If you save 20% of your gross annual income, every year for 20 years, you will be able to retire. You're done. That's it. You're good. Problem is we don't do it consistently all the time, right? And because one reason or another. But it's usually because we put ourselves in that situation. So when you're a W-2 employee, they take the taxes out and you're only left with so much left, right? Now that's not so indicative of your 1099 and realtors. So you spend all of it and then the tax bill comes and you go, oh, yeah, that's right. I got to pay those taxes. So it's a little easier. When you're W-2, and most people have had W-2 jobs, you live on what's left over, right? You budget for what's left over. And if it's a really great year, if you're spending or saving 20%, you can blow the rest. It doesn't matter. Like, that's the reality of it. If you're saving 20% every single month, you can absolutely go out and buy a Rolls Royce or whatever the heck that you want to buy, second home. But you have to create that consistent habit. So that's why you see that number there. Your new sales price will be, that's going to be intention and how many hours you're working. I feel like most folks don't even know how many hours you're working. So I would challenge you to check. You can buy a chess timer, and I would keep the chess timer with you every single day. And you click it on when you're working, you click it off when you're not. You click it on when you're working, you click it off when you're not. And keep it around you all day, and you'll see how much you really work. And I don't mean like checking Facebook and saying, well, I'm checking Facebook and there are potential past clients in there, I swear, that may want to buy from me, but I'm not going to ask them for the business. That does not count. If you're on Facebook and you're hitting up every past client asking for the business, that's prospecting. So think prospecting is actually the act of selling and acquiring new business or retaining new business. Those are the two things that I'm talking about. Or retaining new business would be going to home inspections, maybe going to an appraisal, maybe going and doing an offer, whatever those are. You know what those are, acquiring or retaining. The last is your personal money breakdown of goals. This is something you take with you. I want you to look at your personal cash net worth. Most folks don't know what their cash net worth is or their total net worth. This isn't for going around bragging. This is going around to make sure you're on track and you know where you are. My sister is turning 60 this year, and I had a conversation with her. My sister is a life suck. I love her to death, but she is literally one of the most negative people. She has a fail word like every other word, like, of course it happens to me. I tried. I did. I'm just like, oh my gosh, can I offer you some advice? But I started realizing and thinking about that and caring about her. Man, you're 60. Like, I never thought of that. I was like, but you're 60. Like, whoa, like, so where are we with all of that? Like, so when you're done working, I'm going to have to work forever. You know me. That's what I get, right? I'm just like Eeyore. I'm like, well, let's just say like Dad, because she was out here visiting my dad. He got to a point, she lives in Philadelphia. Let's say he gets to a point where one day you can't. What's the plan? And she's like, I was like, funny. Outside that, like, what's the plan? Right? Because your husband's older too. Like, do you have, and the way of thinking in, a suburb of Jersey, hardworking America isn't necessarily that. And those pensions aren't necessarily there. So making sure that you're accountable for it, you're adding to it and putting into it. That's a real important thing that we overlook, or we stick our head in the sand until that time comes and you're like, oh my gosh. And then it's limited. So I'm provoking the thought because I've seen my dad, I've seen my uncle, I see my sister. Like, it breaks my heart. And the only reason I know how to do the opposite is because I've had good mentors and I've had bad examples to not do those things. So I want to share my experiences so that you guys don't have to go through those if that's you. Knowing your net worth and cash worth should be done monthly. You should be adding up all your investments. You should be looking at them. Anyone invest in the stock market last year? Cool. There was a 24% return last year. So the people last year said, I don't know about it. So you're either in the market or you're out of the market. So I went conservative and I got a 15% return. Like, I'm not saying you have to be in the stock market, but I see people, they put it in a checking account and it doesn't grow. Like, you just have to always be investing all the time, whether it's real estate or stocks or both. But this is going to show you real quick. The easiest way to get to wealth is real estate because you get 100% ROI in 5 years. This is what we should be talking about with our clients. You put 10% down. That house appreciates on average 2% per year. Everyone could agree? Pretty conservative, 2% per year. After 5 years, what is that? Holy moly, 5 years, 100% ROI. Well, what about the interest? Okay, 95% ROI. I didn't get a 95% ROI in the stock market in one of the best arguable runs in the history of the stock market. Now, is it easier to save 20% every single month, or is it easier to put 10% down, 5 years get that money back, and just pay for your own rent and put a roof over your head, and then in 20 or 30 years, sell that house and get $1 million back? Easier? These are the conversations we need to be having with folks. Folks are confused. What about the bubble? It's like I'm talking to my sister all the time. What about the bubble? Of course it's me. I know if I buy the house, no, we have to talk about the positives, the reality of real estate. But for you, I really want you guys to focus on where you're going. Maybe you had a house and you lost the house and you haven't got back in the market. Okay, well, maybe now is not the time to buy it, but making sure if it is or when it is that you're prepared to do so. You don't know when your head's in the sand. Like if you knew 2006 or 2009, remember that? I know for me, I black it out. I was like, I don't remember those years at all. I don't know what you're talking about. But if you could have a briefcase full of cash to buy every house that you saw, would you have done it? Yes. Cool. Is there a crystal ball that tells you that? No. Cool. So you just need to have that briefcase of cash ready so that when it happens, you can take advantage. So in a stock market run like this, you keep 30% cash. So when the stock market drops 20%, what do? You buy. It's on sale. Same thing with real estate. So I really want you to focus on where you are with your finances so that you guys know where to go and really dig deep. And maybe this is hard conversations. Do you know what my least favorite thing to do every month is? My personal budget with my wife. But we do it every single month. I handle the big numbers. She handles all the other numbers, which arguably still add up to more than the big numbers. But we make sure we connect. And we have healthy conflict and confrontation, and we're having that discovery, and we're having that discussion, and course correcting on a monthly basis, not after the fact before it's too late, like I had done in the past. Cool? Was this helpful? Did everyone get their goals? Awesome.